We'll get to things you can do this weekend or in this week. But first and foremost, I will say, whether you have kids or not, if you are in northern Colorado or even all the way down south to Denver, go check out Anderson Farms. My wife, she put together kind of our day. She said, hey, we're going to go spend a day at Anderson Farms. We had been there before for their sunflower picking, but it was a full day and we could honestly have spent even more time. We got there around noon, left around 5, and probably could have spent another couple hours there easily, especially if we were actually picking out pumpkins, because we did corn maze, jumping on jump pads, tricycle rides, little mower rides. I mean, it was absolutely a blast. So first and foremost, if you are looking for something to do this holiday season, Anderson Farms, Erie, Colorado, about 40 minutes from Fort Collins, definitely worth checking out. But this is live in Fort Collins. There was no city council work session or meeting this week, but there was a mayor forum and city candidate forum, which really the focus for me was what were the issues that they felt that mayors should be discussing. So we'll go over some of those here later. And then as well as the Pter Trail, the final mile between Timnath and Windsor is being constructed and should be completed early 2026, which will complete the 45-mile stretch from Bellevue, Colorado to Greeley, Colorado. So one of the best trails, bike trails in northern Colorado. And we'll also kind of look at the strategic trails map, just high level, about where all of our trails are projected to be built in the near and far term. Fort Collins is a platinum rated bike community, and definitely we are doubling down on that. But that being said, let's jump right into things that happened over the last week. Let's see here. If you are a gardener and you kind of got some late season vegetables, definitely want to start watching the forecast. We've had a couple of cold days, but honestly, the next 10 days look pretty awesome. Like high 60s, low 80s, mostly in the 70s, some partly cloudy weather. But I thought there was an interesting article about when we could expect our first frost. 50% chance by October 7th. I don't think we're going to get that by tomorrow. 70% chance by October 13th, and 90% chance by October 20th. Halloween was always one of those kind of coin flip time periods where it could be a beautiful Halloween day or it could be rainy. There could be snow. So, but definitely by that time, we will have had our first snow. So 90% likelihood by October 20th. The earliest frost on record, interesting, August 25th, 1910. The earliest snow was September 8th. So it looks like frost comes a little bit before the snow, just saying, hey, winter's coming. And the latest was October 24th. So we shall see the average frost on October 7th. Let's see here. Driving to my house, heading, let's see here. Actually, I guess it's heading south or north on LeMay between Trilby and Harmony. There is your Avis system right now, automatic vehicle information system, which is giving speeding tickets. Now, this is a contractor, the city of Fort Collins. There's 2 Avis systems, so I don't know where the second one is right now, but I definitely know where this one is because I drive by it daily. And I think my wife goes, yeah, I'm pretty sure I got a speeding ticket. So if you're going 11 miles or more above the speed limit, it is very likely you are going to get a speeding ticket. But, it just got kind of initiated just a few months ago. And apparently there were 477 misprinted speeding tickets. The vendor forgot to or didn't include specific amount of information. So there are going to be some learning period. So if you're one of those 477 people who had a misprinted ticket, you got lucky, but be on the lookout for those. I mean, it's especially like I was driving today and it's been there for about a week and there's already somebody who put up a plywood, said speed trap ahead. And this one does definitely feel like a speed trap. It is at the bottom of a hill, easily to get going. But one thing to remember, 11 miles per hour over the speed limit is pretty significant. So the only ones that I really am not a big fan of are where I think there's some changing of speed limits from like 45 to 35 or 40 to 30, 40 to 35. And so if you're going 46 in a 40 that happens to change into a 35, you could get hit when you just hadn't had a chance to slow down. Obviously the solution is just don't speed. Sometimes you forget about it, or you're in a different zone, and there's lots of different excuses. But I would say the common comment that I'm receiving on the YouTube channel is not favorable. People are not a fan of the speeding traps, Avis systems. So we have 6 red light and speeding cameras, and probably more going to come. And then we have 2 Avis systems throughout Fort Collins. Now, there is, I believe it's Vision 0 is what the vision is, and adds 0 fatalities or serious injuries on our roadways in Fort Collins. And there are a lot of statistics that are backing up speeding is ultimately what causes the serious injuries and fatalities. So if we can avoid that, the hope is that we get to our Vision 0. And in the meantime, it is definitely a revenue generator for Fort Collins. There are some specific parameters that the funds that are raised from these speeding tickets can be used. So it can't just go to a general fund by any means. It's specific for these education programs, speeding, enforcement, going back into the system. So the hope is that the revenue is going to, increase, plateau, and then hopefully decrease as people's behaviors change a little bit. But time will tell. That being said, people are very frustrated about it. But if you're one of the lucky 477 that had a misprinted ticket, you are not going to have to pay at this time. They're $40. Do not take any points off unless you are more than 25 miles per hour over. Then actually an officer will show up to your house, knock on your door, and give you an actual ticket, which then it will impact your points on your license. Just, hopefully don't speed. That's the ultimate solution. A 255 apartment complex is breaking ground southeast Fort Collins by Hanson Farms. Now, this is by Tailwinds Park. So right across the street, Bacon Elementary, Linden Park area, between Linden Park and Willow Springs, developed area. You've got the reserve at Timberline by Dreamfinders, and then you've got Handsome Farm by DR Horton. And this is I don't know who the builder is. The broker of the land was NAI Affinity, and I'm not sure who is the builder of the apartment complex. But that being said, this does bring that affordable housing product to Southeast Fort Collins. So young families, are going to have an option for, Bacon Elementary is literally right across the street. It connects to Mail Creek Trail. And so that's going on here sooner than later. A lot of the building permits, this was proposed in 2022, and it's just now breaking ground. And as we'll get to the mayor forum here shortly, that was probably one of the common factors that the mayor would like to see is how can we expedite this development review process? Because, as people move, as density increases, supply gets constrained. And unless we have consistent supply of homes, whether that be single family, multifamily, whatever, then we're going to see price pressures, mostly on the upward trajectory. And if it's taking 3 years for development to break ground, not even be vertical, so by the time this actually is built out and people living there, it's probably going to be mid to late 2026. So we're more like 3.5 to 4 years. That's a problem, and we'll see, kind of what happens with that. But that's a common discussion point for mayor candidates. Lera continues to take shape. Really, the main thing that I've talked about at a time, we've got In-N-Out. Let's see, what's it called? A GQ barbecue, Prost Brewing, and kind of tap house, 10,000 square foot self-storage. A couple other things that are going on there. Let's see here. What else? A beer garden, Christian Brothers Automotive Center. But I thought what was really interesting was Connell Resources is going to decommission its on-site asphalt plant by spring of 2026. So that asphalt plant is going to be decommissioned, and you'll see development really start to take shape in that area. Wetzel and into County Road 5, you are just seeing that Lera project really start to take shape, which is really pretty cool. So excited for that for the folks of Timnath and myself too. I mean, In-N-Out Burger, that one, I'm not a big fast food guy. I'm not saying that I don't do it by any means, but I would be going to that one comparatively to the one in Loveland. So those will all be really starting to take shape. 2026, that area is going to, look completely different than it does now. Starbucks locations are closing. Not that we don't have enough Starbucks locations in Fort Collins. I probably could tell you each one of them and where they're at and if they're a drive-through or not. I've got a coffee problem. But that being said, it's going to be the one on Collett. And this is actually kind of a bummer. This location, I mean, Chick-fil-A is basically the anchor tenant there, which is crazy because technically Safeway would be the anchor tenant there on College and Horace-Tooth. But that Safeway is getting shut down as part of a Safeway, restructuring, realignment. And then on top of that now, Starbucks, which is there. Let me make sure. I'm like 90% sure. 3617. Yes. So that is the one. So there's going to be a Safeway that shuts down. And I'll show you my screen real quick. Might as well. Let's see here. There we go. I'll share my screen. So this is where the Starbucks is, and the Safeway is right here. Like I said, this Chick-fil-A is basically the anchor tenant. But you're going to have 2 vacancies there. Here pretty shortly, along with the anchor tenant being Safeway shut down. So what's unfortunate about those is that it takes a while for those anchor tenants to be replaced and those retail options to be kind of filled up. So that kind of corner, College and Horace-Tooth, which you could argue, well, I would say College and Drake really is the middle of Fort Collins, but College and Horace-Tooth is not far from being in the middle of town. Having a couple of vacancies. So that'll be interesting. And then there's another one off of Laurel that's closing down for Starbucks. But that's it. There's still going to be plenty of Starbucks all over Fort Collins. The Fort Collins Rescue Mission officially broke ground. Should open up late 2026, early 2027. The $27.5 million facility, 38,000 square feet, 250 bed. It's going to be a state-of-the-art facility. It's going to be absolutely beautiful. And hopefully there's a lot of different considerations for that. Safety around the area. Hopefully we can rehouse those, provide mental health services that are needed. It's a men's only overnight shelter, but then it's also a day shelter as well. So that is going to be built here shortly and up and running by late 2026, early 2027. So we talked a little bit earlier about red light cameras. Windsor is going to join forces with everybody, and they're going to have 4 red light cameras this fall in Windsor. So, I mean, no matter where you're at, whether you're in Fort Collins, Loveland, or Windsor, you're going to have to be cognizant that there are red light speeding and red light cameras in and around northern Colorado. So be on the lookout. I've talked about it before, but November 4th, I think it is just right around the corner for this year's election season. And there's going to be 6 sales tax initiatives on the November ballot in Lera County, not all in Fort Collins. 2 in Fort Collins. One is going to be the $0.25 renewal for the Community Capital Improvement Projects, CCIP, and then also to extend the natural areas tax as well. Those are extensions. I don't know. Again, I've talked about it before. The natural areas tax, I think, currently expires like late 2020 or like 2029 or 2030. This is an extension in perpetuity. And I don't know if I am for a forever tax. I love the idea of sunsetting, giving the people of Fort Collins, Northern Colorado, Lera County, wherever, the opportunity to vote again for that initiative whenever it comes up, whether that's every 10 years, 20 years. I just don't like a forever tax. Lera County is going to have a 15% sales tax offering for roads, bridges, upgrades, and then also a 1/4 sales tax for childcare access, affordability, and wages in Lera County. Timnath is asking for a 1.25% sales tax to help build a $98 million recreation center. Now, obviously, Timnath and Fort Collins are separate. Totally understand that. But my understanding, let's see if I wonder if I can show it here. Let's see if I can. I didn't look this up beforehand. Timnath Rec Center. Okay, yeah, cool. Does it have location? I can't see the location of it, but what I wanted to show you is that there is a planned $98 million Timnath Recreation Center, and then also a basically $100 million community center in Fort Collins that is being proposed. I believe I know where the recreation center is proposed, and Timnath is small enough that I think just the point needs to be what it is. So I'm going to show the screen. Okay. So like I said, Fort Collins is actually, it's already been approved. It is in the works. It's being developed right now. Construction begins, I think, late next year, early 2027, with completion in 2028. But that is where the $100 million recreation center is proposed in Fort Collins. Okay, right here. Rock Creek and Ziegler. Timnath is proposing a 1.25% sales tax to raise $98 million to build a recreation center right here. I mean, so we're talking less than 4 miles, $200 million worth of recreation centers. Now, of course, Timnath versus Fort Collins. If you're a resident of Timnath, you get discounts going there versus if you're a resident of Fort Collins, discounts. But both will have access to people. You'll just have to pay day passes and things of that nature. I just thought it was really interesting, more than anything, that you've got some pretty significant projects being proposed. Now, the City of Fort Collins project, the Southeast Community Center, that's already been approved and is in the works. It is going to begin. The Timnath one. Now, here's some timeframes to understand though too. So maybe not worth getting too excited about, because Fort Collins passed this resolution to build a Southeast Community Center in 2015, and it'll be built and operational in 2028. So 13 years later. So and Timnath is much, much faster on their development review process. It's a smaller community, smaller review process. I mean, I can call the planning department in Timnath, and it's one of 2 people. So that's a lot different than the City of Fort Collins, 10,000 people versus 180,000 people. So it probably will move a lot faster, but still they need to generate revenue, bring that in, and then ultimately design and build. So we're still probably 5 to 10 years out for that. So they might be a few years apart, but you're still going to have some pretty world-class facilities built if that passes. And then finally, the City of Wellington is proposing a half-cent sales tax to fund district upgrades and fleet replacements for the fire district. Okay. If you've ever been to Fort Collins and you've been downtown, there's no paid parking. And that's a little bit unique for as big of a city as Fort Collins is. And there is some questions about like they call it upside down parking revenue structure. So the on-street most desirable spots are free, whereas the garage, which is a little bit further away, not as desirable, costs money. So it's incentivizing people to, move around, drive, make U-turns, look for parking spots. I can't remember the phrase they use to describe it, like trolling for a parking spot, comparatively to going straight to the garage, parking there, and paying the couple bucks. So there's proposals for there to be paid parking, and there's going to be some discussions about it. the city staff is working of whether or not we should do this or how we should do this, but there's a pretty decent stance against it. I personally don't think that it would impact people visiting downtown Fort Collins in the slightest. I mean, you're talking especially with being paid apps and things of that nature. I just think it would be, whether you get the first hour free and pay. I think there's structures, but reverse that the premium spots are paid for, less premium spots are, whether it's free or whatever, get people off the roads or off the streets and into the garages that we've built and paid millions and millions of dollars for. Feel free to comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you disagree with that, if you think that it might impact, people traveling down to downtown Fort Collins, I don't think it would impact my habits very much. I'm not spending a half a day down there. It would allow people to spend multiple hours comparatively to just 2 hours, because it's 2 hours free and then you got to move. Before I jump into the mayor forum about what priorities they believe is City of Fort Collins, I do want to share my screen about the strategic trails. The City of Fort Collins, or I should say Lera County, and the Pter Trail is being built out right now, the final mile stretch on the Pter Trail. So kind of actually, you don't even really see it honestly over here, but it's between Windsor and Timnath, and that'll be completed in early 2026. But that's going to be a 45-mile stretch from Bellevue all the way to Greeley. So talk about a great ride. But I thought it'd be really interesting to just kind of jump in and look at some of the future proposals for trails. Like on the green is near term, so think 5 to 10 years, yellow 10 to 15 years, and then the red 15 to 20 years. So, this connection right here on Spring Creek all the way to the Pter Trail would just be absolutely phenomenal. They're kind of already, there's a significant amount of bike traffic along Overland Trail as it is, but this would provide a safe, quick access from Spring Creek Trail, which is the Fossil Creek Trail, all the way to the Pter Trail. And as I've talked with a lot of people, the Northeast is going to start to see a significant amount of bike trails built out there. And then over the next 40 years, 20 to 40 years, you're going to see all the trails on the Northeast side where all of the development is, Mountain Vista Drive. This is Montava, 30,000 people are expected to be living here. You've got Saunders up here that's going to get connected to these trails. Country Club, Linden Lake, Vine, which is a huge development area as well. So just really kind of cool to see all of the construction. This would also be really sweet too. Along Carpenter Road next to Duck Pond. If you've heard of the Duck Pond, this is where it's, Stinky Pond is what my kids call it. But a safe paved trail from essentially I-25 all the way to, what would that be? Like Coyote Ridge Natural Area. Just really exciting things in the future. I will be quite old if it takes the full 40 years, but my kids will get to enjoy it and future generations will get to enjoy it. All right, finally, we are going to jump into our final two things. There was a mayor forum that was put on by the League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan group that asked about 11 questions about, where do the candidates stand on each issue? And apparently these are kind of like the most pressing issues of Fort Collins. So that's mostly what I want to talk about, is what the pressing issues are of Fort Collins. There are 6 candidates. Tricia Canonico, let's see if I can think about all the off the top of my head. There are 7 candidates, but only 6 were there at the forum. Tricia Canonico, Emily Francis, Shirley Peel, Adam Eggleston, Scotty V, and Adam Hirshorn. So those are all the 6 candidates that were asked to answer. They were given 60 seconds to respond. And here are some of the top priorities. Affordability, growth management. There is an $11 million budget shortfall. And that was kind of what they focused around. Housing solutions. A lot of the candidates were discussing about more infill opportunities for ADUs. Tiered water tap fees was a kind of an interesting conversation for smaller built homes. Housing funds, a more dedicated housing fund that Emily Francis asked. homeownership incentives, dense eco-friendly builds, stronger neighborhood input. Budget ideas. Most were targeting cuts and program reviews. What's the level of service that we are offering? And does that need to be addressed? Small business was actually a big focus for them. Small business and the development review process. They were saying, you know what, to operate a small business in Fort Collins can be burdensome and expensive. And those are the businesses that we should be focusing on helping along the lines of, any types of change of use permits or the fee structures, whatever that might be. But if you're a small business, a focus should be provided, or a focus should be yours to get off the ground, help be successful, because they're kind of the backbone of many small or many cities and towns is small business. Additionally, on the housing solutions, a big deal was the development review process. It shouldn't be taking years to get through this, expediting things, having almost like a library of choices for ADUs. So they really wanted to look at that. Transit, everyone kind of agreed. Actually, Adam Hirshhorn, which was one of the individuals who was like, you know what, I took transport 6 times a day. I don't believe he's homeless, but he has lived that life and uses the transport every day. And he was actually extremely grateful and thankful for the transport, which is great to hear. A lot of the other potential candidates for the mayor very rarely use the transport, but a lot of them wanted to see this $40 million transit budget that we have more focused on micro transit and fare-free rides, and really discussing what the route structure is. Water management definitely was a consideration between whether it's rate hikes, incentivizing xeriscaping. How do we deal with the cost of water now moving forward and the users of that? Emily Francis brought up a really good point that, if we're looking at water, mitigation, residential water use is actually a very small part of water. Most of it's used by agriculture. So she was talking about like a holistic approach, but we can do our part, but it's got to be kind of more of a holistic approach. There was some discussions about noise enforcement, how CSU plays in that, muffler, the concrete plant on US 287, pretty much across the board. No one supports that. Potential plastic bottle ban for under 1 gallon bottles. Everyone was pretty non-committal on what they wanted to be on that. So that is going to be on October 7th. If you don't get my newsletter every Tuesday, I send it out. I am providing a link to that YouTube, or you could simply search Mayor Forum, City of Fort Collins, and it's easy to find, but that's an hour and a half. And then also they did a city council forum as well. So, get informed. This November, we're coming up on votes. But if you're not from Fort Collins and you're wanting, what are the pressing issues of the area? That's really what we're discussing: budget, housing, affordability, CSU relations, small business atmosphere. That is what the focus is in Fort Collins and Northern Colorado. Alrighty, if you're looking at what to do this weekend, there's a bunch to do. Again, I would strongly recommend going and checking out Anderson Farms. It was an absolute blast. Erie, Colorado. It's $31 per person, which is expensive, but you can spend an entire day there. We felt the value was absolutely there. There's food trucks there, plenty of things to do, but otherwise it's $30 if you buy online, or $45 if you buy there. Now, don't get too excited, because when you're there, if you walk up to the booth, we at least had someone very friendly, like, hey, listen, go buy these online and bring it back up to me, because you're going to save $15 per person, which for us, we have one kid that's 3 or under, so he didn't get charged, but that would have saved us, $60 on that. So, which is great. All right, some things to do. Free paint recycling in Fort Collins, Colorado. Now, Larimer County, if you are a resident of Larimer County, I don't know what the full rule set is, but you can take your paint to Larimer County, and they have, so long as it's from your house, they will take your paint anytime. But there is free paint recycling in Fort Collins, October 11th, 9 to 1 p.m. at 2908 South College Road, which I believe is Timberline Church. There is also the Fort Collins Nursery's Giant Pumpkin Weigh-In, October 11th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Fort Collins Nursery. So definitely something fun to do. The Colorado Eagles, which is our local semi-pro hockey team, which I think is like now just the tier under. I believe they're an affiliate now of the Colorado Avalanche. So just one tier under the Colorado Avalanche. So there's potential that you could go watch the Eagles, and the next week, one of those players could be playing in the NHL if there's an injury or something along those lines. But their first game is October 10th and at Blue Arena. So if you're looking for something to do, that's something that is always fun to do. Pumpkins on Parade at the Gardens at Spring Creek, October 23rd through the 26th, 5 to 9 p.m. But probably worth getting your tickets sooner than later. I don't necessarily think they sell out, but I do think there are time slots that get filled up. So start planning those. If you haven't bought your tickets yet, go look at there. CSU Volleyball versus Boise State, October 9th at Moby Arena. CSU Football versus Fresno State. I mean, I was contemplating whether or not I should put this on. CSU Football has been pretty sad to watch this year, to say the least. I think we're 1-4. And even the game that we won, from my understanding, technically we maybe shouldn't even have won it. UNC, Northern Colorado, should have beat us. So we could easily be 0-5 right now, but it's still a fun atmosphere, something fun to do in Fort Collins. Tickets are cheap. Now, I guess that's tickets are cheap. That's the benefit of, when your team's not very good, they give good deals. In fact, one of my buddies sent me a picture of CSU football tickets on sale at Costco. I think my response to him was, never a good thing when your team's football tickets are on sale at Costco. But go watch them. If you're in the area, support Colorado State University. It is our backbone, and hopefully we can figure out our football. I will say this though. Maybe this isn't, okay, the NCAA, I was a collegiate athlete. My wife was a collegiate athlete. I have tons of friends that were collegiate athletes. Now, I was also a track and field athlete, which pays no money, brings in no revenue for the university. So it is a sport that's kind of gets the benefit from football and basketball, but brings in no revenue. But the NCAA definitely, they made billions and billions of dollars on the football players, don't get me wrong, and basketball players, and definitely was a semi-pro sport that was treating athletes, as free athletes. But now the athletes are getting paid, and some of these athletes getting paid very, very well, 6 figures and 7 figures for obviously bigger schools, but 6 figures at CSU. I start to expect a little bit better performance. I'm like, you're going to be walking around campus and making, $600,000 or $1 million. I want some W's. I'd be curious what your thoughts are, but that's my 2 cents at least. From there, there's a Downtown Pumpkin Festival in Loveland, October 11th, 12 to 5 p.m. Again, check out Anderson Farms, and always, there's brew tours, ghost tours this time of year. That's always a fun thing to do downtown Fort Collins. But that is it. Those are the things to do this week and weekend. It is my wife's 40th. So if you see her, or if you have any connections with her, wish her a happy birthday. And otherwise, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Oh, tomorrow, our monthly market update, 2:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We'll go deep dive into all things that are happening in Fort Collins, median sales price, days on market, leading indicators, lagging indicators, how the market's doing, kind of our pulse on the market. So join that tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, YouTube Live. Appreciate you guys watching. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.